Two.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again for County Executive Marc Elrich's weekly media briefing. Today, we're going to be joined by three guests to talk about the debate over natural grass and artificial turf fields. That's Hannah Donart, uh, and Jeffrey Reinhardt from the University of Maryland, and Richard Montgomery, student and soccer player, uh, uh, Margot Ashford. So, without further ado, County Executive Elrich, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks everybody for being here, and thanks all these folks coming on to talk about artificial turf. With the start of the school year nearly upon us and the beginning of fall sports and practices commencing, it's a good time to address the future of our athletic fields. And as you can see from the headline, we're showing that this is a question that even NFL players are asking their owners and the league about. When elite athletes who have millions of dollars at stake with their own health are asking for natural turf, I think it's a question we need to address as well. Um, I've been involved in this going back to when I was on the council. We've been trying to address it for a long time. As you can see from this, uh, just this year, while reviewing capital improvement projects requests from the Montgomery County Public Schools, my recommendation was to use natural grass fields over artificial turf fields. I want to be clear about this, though. I put serious money into the program that would allow them to build proper natural grass fields. Historically, our grass fields are basically pretty close to not well done. They took whatever was on the ground, they put dirt on top of it, they called it a field, and then were shocked when it didn't hold up really well. Um, our natural grass fields work when they're installed properly with the right drainage and with the right type of grass and the right type of care. And so I'm a big believer. I've seen these things work, and I think it's really important. When my budget went over to the council's Education and Culture Committee agreed with me that natural tests should be prioritized. But overall, the council decided to leave that decision with the Board of Education. First of all, plastic fields are more expensive than natural grass fields. Take a look at this chart. Over time, the cost of a natural grass field is much less than the cost of an artificial turf field. A lot of that has to do with the fact you have to buy a new field anytime from 7 to 10 years, and that gets expensive. You don't have to do that. All you're doing is repairing fields. Sometimes you're putting in sods, you're reseeding if it's natural grass, but you're not having to replace the whole thing. This chart is from the 2025 Montclair State University study of artificial versus natural grass fields that shows how the cost of natural grass is cheaper over time. And by 2050, the cumulative cost of artificial turf was 50% higher. At a time when we don't have money to waste in our school system, wasting money on artificial turf, and we could be putting this money back into the classrooms, I think is a serious mistake. A recent Office of Legislative Oversight report provides a clear roadmap to this discussion. It reinforces why we have to prioritize high quality, naturally maintained grass fields over adding more synthetic surfaces. We can't ignore the growing concerns regarding PFAS, forever chemicals, and the microplastics that are associated with synthetic turf. Maryland's already begun enacting laws to track synthetic turf disposal. Many people found that the turf that was supposed to be properly disposed is sitting around not being disposed properly. And they're looking at legislation to restrict PFAS in surfaces because of the risks from PFAS are real. Additionally, synthetic turf raises serious questions about stormwater challenges and the introduction of non-biodegradable materials into our ecosystem. As I mentioned earlier, synthetic turf fields get dangerously hot. I can attest to this because when I was on the council and we were going out with residents and looking at artificial turf fields, we had thermometers that you held above the surface of the field, not on the field, but above in the air above the field. And they are extraordinarily hot, unsafely hot. They contribute to the heat island effect in ways that directly affect our kids and the quality of life in our denser neighborhoods. This point is especially relevant now that we're beginning to see practice ramp up for fall sports while we're still dealing with summer heat. And I think sadly, we all remember the tragedy of a University of Maryland football player, Jordan McNair, and how he died on a natural turf field from heat stroke in May of 2018 during a warm, humid spring football practice. We are in a climate crisis. Our days are getting hotter year by year. We are having more hot days year by year, including late spring and early fall. And we have to be consistent with our policies. So I'd like to invite our three guests to join me today for discussion. Hannah Donart is with the Real Grass for Healthy Kids, a coalition working to influence the Board of Education on its turf fields decisions. Jeffrey Reinhardt is a grass expert on the feasibility of high-use real grass and how science can help MCPS meet its demands. And Margot Ashford is a soccer player at Richard Montgomery who can talk about her experience as a student athlete competing on synthetic turf fields versus grass fields. So, Hannah, I'll start with you.
Great, thanks for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides here. They're prepared for this talk. Can everybody see those okay and hear me all right?
Yep.
Great. So I'm Hannah Donert, Vice Chair of the Montgomery County Council of PTA's Health and Wellness Committee, Poolesville cluster parent to two soccer players, and an environmental and public health scientist. My environmental and public health training is grounded in preventing harmful exposures before they happen. I bring my professional expertise as well as my lived experience as a mom to my PTA and Real Grass for Healthy Kids Coalition volunteer work. This coalition is made up of over 20 organizations that collectively represent tens of thousands of Montgomery County residents. In short, we support real grass athletic fields in all schools and do not want plastic fields in our county. Our coalition is urging county leadership to shift the way we think about plastic athletic fields. These fields are hard, hot, and toxic, and we have a safer and less costly alternative, real grass, which can provide equitable access to high-quality athletic fields in the county, offering a durable, viable option if well installed and maintained. There are five main concerns, particularly for children and teens' health when it comes to plastic turf. Children and teens' unique vulnerabilities put them at heightened risk. They are not little adults. They breathe faster, taking in more pollutants per body weight. Their bodies are still developing and will continue developing into their teens and 20s. They also absorb some toxicants more readily and they regulate body temperature less efficiently than adults. And critically, they rely on adults to make decisions for them. Second, chemicals of concern. And third, microplastics, and those chemicals including PFAS, are also an issue. They can leach and migrate off plastic fields, exposing athletes and contaminating our environment. Fourth, heat is a big concern. These photos on the left were taken at Blair High School this July when the temperature was 98 degrees. Grass shows a temperature of 94.1 degrees, which mitigates heat, while plastic is 146.5 degrees, an overall 50-degree difference. And increased injury risks are our fifth concern. As plastic turf ages and degrades, it gets harder, and that hardness translates directly into more knee, ankle, and foot injuries, such as the photo on the right. During the World Cup Games, just as Marc Elrich mentioned, this summer, stadium plastic fields were replaced with real grass to meet FIFA safety standards, and now NFL players are pushing to keep these grass fields over concerns of higher injury rates. And considering the injury data, coupled with kids and teens' unique physical vulnerabilities as they grow, plastic may exacerbate the risks of acute and chronic injuries in youth. Higher rates of injuries can also mean time off the field, more money and time spent on doctors' visits, and decreased likelihood of going to play college sports. Children and teens are also not exposed to these risks one at a time. They experience them simultaneously. Chemical exposures, microplastics, heat, and injury risks compound each other, raising the odds of both acute and chronic health effects that build up over time. And these risks also aren't distributed equally. Youth and marginalized communities already face disproportionate chemical pollution and less access to green space, and those with existing chronic health conditions are more vulnerable to begin with. For these kids, artificial turf doesn't just add one more risk, it compounds the ones they're already carrying. Last year, MCPS presented a 10-year cost analysis to the Board of Education that left out $1 million for plastic replacement and disposal every 8 to 10 years. So one of our coalition members conducted an independent cost analysis using MCPS's own numbers with the $1 million included. This graph shows the cost of plastic on the top 3 lines compared to real grass seen at the bottom 2 lines over 25 years. Plastic is more than twice as much as high-use organically managed grass, and this model doesn't include health and environmental cost of plastic. MCPS use estimates for plastic and grass also make very little or no sense. According to MCPS, their plastic fields are used for over 10 hours a day, 365 days a year. Just as a starter, in Montgomery County, on average, there are 40 to 45 summer days per year over 90 degrees Fahrenheit and 80 to 90 days below freezing. Contrary to MCPS's claims, local grass experts, however, have demonstrated that high-use grass can support the hours of play needed for MCPS's robust athletic and physical education program. So if the numbers don't add up, and as MCPS claims, the only clear advantage to artificial turf is use, why are we relying on inaccurate estimates to justify investing in more plastic when health and environmental costs for our youth and our communities are so great? In the coming weeks, the Board of Ed will be considering approving contracts for new plastic fields. We need community members to demand that county leadership stop funding plastic school athletic fields. We would even like to take this a step further and push for a moratorium in our county. Knowing all we know, it would be irresponsible and negligent to continue spending tax dollars on more costly, unsustainable, and less safe plastic fields.
Thank you. How do they get 10 hours a day, 365 days a year?
So I have the data in another slide I'm happy to share with you. Let me just reshare my slides. I thought that question might come up. Here they are. All right, so you have here, that's cost analysis. At the bottom, this is the calculation. So this is MCPS's use data that they're estimating. So they said of the 12 fields that are synthetic turf, they get 45,816 hours of those 12. So you take that 45,816 divided by 12 fields, and you get 3,818 hours per year for 12 plastic fields. Then you take the 318 hours per year per plastic field and divide that by 365 days per year, and you get 10.46 hours per day, which is absolutely unrealistic and can't be done.
It's not even close.
Nope. So the estimates we've been given aren't accurate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. Professor Reinhardt, you want to go next?
Yes, I'll share my PowerPoint.
And please reintroduce yourself too.
Yes. Back up. Hello, my name is Jeffrey Reinhardt. I'm a lecturer and extension agent at University of Maryland in the turfgrass management program. I have over 20 years experience in the turfgrass industry, and I teach and again conduct research related to extension and also do education related to extension to the golf industry, the sports turf industry, and the lawn and landscape industry. So I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about modern natural grass technology and maintenance within these few minutes that I have. I think a lot of people my age or older have this vision of what a sports field is, kind of a mud pit, using old technology, again, referring to Marc Elrich's reference to just kind of scraping whatever they had together, throwing a little bit of soil on it, putting grass on it. And so this is exactly what we don't want and exactly what we won't have with newer technology and sand-based technologies. The issue with these native soil fields is the fact that these soil particles are smaller and they can be compacted more easily. So when the soil particles are compacted very easily, there's fewer openings for air to get into that soil and sustain the roots. So you see that the plants will eventually start to go downhill because those roots don't have the oxygen that is adequately needed. And a good soil, like a sand-based soil or very light, loamy soil, again, with the sand-based soil, you have more air within those particles because those particles are bigger. There's more air spaces for the roots to be able to thrive. And so, as we referred to before, sand-based fields are the newer technology, and the way that we would plant these fields with that sand-based field. So the key here is that sand doesn't compact and allows that air to remain in the root zone more easily. And then when you insert drainage into these systems, it allows that water to drain through that sand. But typically with the gravel layer here and the sand-based root zone, that would actually purge the water. So the water's there when the roots need it, but it drains away when there's too much water. And so this is how many modern stadiums are built. A lot of modern fields are built this way. In addition, you can do a built-up sand-capped method where you're actually just taking off the top 5 inches and then putting sand back into that, as well as drainage, and that would work as well. And that's been demonstrated by research at Michigan State University. By the way, Michigan State University did a lot of the research related to the World Cup recently here. So they've got a lot of good information on how these work and a lot of good examples for how these sand-based fields can work. So you're draining that excess water quickly out of the root zone, drying the surface, and providing a very playable surface. And the main thing again with the sand is that you've got more air that's able to get into the roots. If the roots are able to breathe, they're able to thrive just like us. And so you have healthier plants, good root stability, and even in wet weather, that will so that the turf grass there will be able to sustain the wear and tear that it needs to sustain within a game and practice situation. The other thing that we have nowadays that we didn't have as much 10, 15 years ago are modern Bermuda grass varieties. So this is a medium fine texture, warm season grass, does extremely well under a lot of heat, does extremely well under heat stress because it's a warm season grass, has very good wear tolerance under foot traffic. And these rhizomes and stolons, these that you see here, kind of the rhizomes creeping out, allows this grass to be able to recover from damage. So it actually kind of self-repairs itself if cared for properly. I might note that the Commanders and the Ravens both have Bermuda grass in their fields, and the Maryland Soccerplex has a number of fields that are Bermuda grass fields. Being able to maintain this is very feasible through a process that is known as cultivation. So going into airify to get additional air into that soil matrix is helpful. Going into the equipment on the left, there's called linear decompaction, where you can see it goes in, it creates these air channels in that soil media to allow for air. So we've got ways that you can incorporate additional air into the system as periodic maintenance. And of course, Maryland Soccerplex has been a really good example of how to do this. I think a lot of people within the county are very familiar with the Maryland Soccerplex fields and their high quality fields. One of the issues that comes up though is the wear and tear over a number of hours. And so these are frequent play wear areas. Obviously, we've got kind of the goal mouse or the right near the end zones there for football, goal mouse for soccer, and then the middle of the field. And so the answer to do this, in my mind, is just to go through and resod. And this can be done for relatively modest expense. I hear arguments that, oh, they can't take the wear and tear. Well, the idea is, okay, if the grass gets worn out, you can fairly easily go in and resod the areas that are very high wear areas like the goal mouth. So for example, if you had, I was speaking with an industry colleague whose company does resodding. It's about $2.50 to $3 per square foot. So if you had a resodding of 2,000 square feet to include goal mouths and maybe the middle of the field times $3 per square foot times 2 times a year, that's $12,000 a year, which is pretty modest in the grand scheme of things for being able to sustain good grass to be able to replace the few parts of the grass field that get worn out because of very heavy traffic. In addition, newer technology here again, we've got robotic mowers. So you really reduce the amount of person hours that it takes to mow a field. These are oftentimes battery powered, can be solar charged. And then line painters, same type of thing, can be battery powered. solar charge. So we have got a lot of great sports field maintenance technology now that we didn't have 10, 12 years ago. So my point is that natural grass can take more, and certainly the foundation of this is sand-based field construction and adequate maintenance with knowledgeable professionals. And obviously, we have a lot of local and regional support from sod growers to help with replacing needed areas. So you're supporting Maryland farmers, Maryland sod growers, instead of bringing in plastic from out of country or out of state if we go with the natural grass field system. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Professor. And now we'll conclude with Margot from Richard Montgomery High School. Go ahead, Margot.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Margot. I'm a rising senior at Richard Montgomery High School. And sorry, let me share my screen really quickly. Along with that, I am an advocacy director at a student organization called EcoMoco. We are an entirely student-led nonprofit focused on engaging youth in environmental education, advocacy, and stewardship. And it's through my role there that I was connected with this issue. So this summer, we've been working closely with the Real Grass for Healthy Kids Coalition on this issue. And as I dove into the research with the environmental implications of synthetic turf, I started to learn a lot more on its significance for injury risk. And I realized that this issue is actually really personal to me as a varsity soccer player. I practice 2 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week on a turf field at Richard Montgomery. And so I firsthand experience and witness these things. So Ms. Donar and County Executive Elrich and Professor Reinhardt already touched on a lot of these important statistics. But I just want to emphasize, according to a study completed by Washington University St. Louis, high school athletes have a 58% increased chance of injury on artificial turf fields rather than natural grass. Whether that is serious muscle and joint injuries, whether that is turf burns and abrasions, this is a really significant difference, and I've certainly experienced it myself. So I have gotten overuse injuries related to my patellar tendons associated with playing on hard surfaces like turf frequently. In addition, if you talk to pretty much anyone who plays a sport on turf, especially soccer, they'll tell you that they've gotten some pretty nasty turf burns in their experience. And those turf burns can be really dangerous. There may be as much of a 7 times increased chance of infection compared to just a regular scrape. Luckily, I've never had to deal with an infection, but those can really change. The risk of turf burn can really change the way that we play. I know that playing on turf, I'm certainly a lot more scared to go in for a slide tackle than I'm playing on natural grass. So it does have a real impact on the way that we play the game. And ultimately, I understand the feeling of convenience of a synthetic turf. In fact, just the other day, I had to have a scrimmage moved because of conditions on an under-maintained grass field. However, I believe that the health and environmental detriments of synthetic turf outweigh the convenience any day. So of course, in addition to the health impacts and injury risks that we've mentioned, as County Executive Elrich said, these synthetic turf fields have a huge environmental impact, whether that's leaching microplastics, PFAS, chemicals, disinfectants into the environment, or whether it's the impact that they have on ground temperatures. These can contribute to ecological dead zones. And of course, the heat can be super dangerous for us, especially in these summer months. Preseason, we're doing a lot of conditioning. And with those high temperatures on the turf fields, things get really sketchy in terms of dehydration and heat stress. So as a varsity student athlete, I'm concerned about more than the status of my scrimmage tonight on a grass field. I'm concerned about the long-term health of myself and my teammates and the future of our planet. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you everybody
Thank
for
you.
those thorough presentations. We'll now going to take a pause and media questions here for our guests or Mark about this issue specifically. If you have questions from the media, please raise your hands. Judy, thank you, Judy. Judy Hurst from the Only Gazette. How you doing, Judy?
Hi, thanks. This is in its simplest form, with all these seemingly logical reasons not to use artificial turf. Who's pushing for it? And is it simply a matter of money?
I'm happy to answer that.
Okay, go ahead, Hannah.
So the athletic directors, the principals, and booster clubs, who, by the way, the booster clubs have been asked to over and over again fund real grass because MCPS doesn't put adequate funding and maintenance into real grass in their fields. So there's an inequity there in the model for funding grass fields. It's in booster clubs, and you can imagine the wealthier schools with more money have more funding to support it. So they wanted to put that funding elsewhere, right? The booster clubs. So they all signed letters without any citations, regurgitating industry claims such as PFAS free, which there is no such thing as a PFAS free claim because there's been PFAS found in it, and we haven't to date been given evidence that suggests otherwise. And there have been studies that have found PFAS in it. So those are the groups that have been advocating that I've seen. And we've reached out, we've asked to speak with them, also with the Board of Education and with Superintendent Taylor. We're hoping to get meetings with them. They have been, some of them have been responsive. Several attended our information session with all this information and experts there too. But that's, yeah, short answer. As those are the folks that I've seen proponent.
Okay, thank you. And could I ask a quick follow-up to Margot? Margot, where have you taken your show on the road? Have you gone before the school board? Have you gone to whomever you need to go to plead your case?
To an extent, yeah. So this organization that I work with, EcoMoco, we're currently running a testimony drive in order to get students up in front of the Board of Education during tomorrow's meeting. And we've also been submitting written testimony and just trying to get in touch with them just to share the student perspective and emphasize that although we appreciate the convenience of turf fields, there is a real concern from students and student athletes about their health and the health of the environment. So it's a growing effort for sure. We're trying to rally the troops, but we have certainly been beginning to work with the Board of Education on this.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Kate Ryan, WTOP.
Thank you very much. Margot, I want to start with you. Can you describe, you explained how, look, there are certain moves or plays that you might avoid because you don't want to experience that turf burn. I get that. How about the difference of the feel underfoot? And have you ever been out on a turf, the artificial turf, where it was just too hot? And has a game ever been called because it was too hot to play?
Absolutely. So I don't believe I've ever experienced a game being canceled just because they're often much later in the day, in the evening, cooler temperatures. But certainly I've had practices cut short because of dangerous temperatures. And then, sorry, I'm trying to work my way backwards through your questions. Could you repeat
Sure,
some of those?
sure.
Thank
No,
you.
you're doing great. So, but has it ever been for you as a player, like just too blazing hot to play on that surface? We all hate, well, okay, I'll speak for myself. I hate hot weather. But if you've ever been out on the field where it's 146 degrees as those temperatures indicate, and it's been too hot.
Absolutely. So I think one of the main risk factors for that is during the summer, when I myself and other student athletes will often go out and try to practice to get ahead of the season. There have been times when it's felt decently cool outside. It's maybe 10 in the morning, and I think it's a great time to go out and practice. And I step onto that turf field, and I realize that it's not physically safe for me to be practicing on that surface. And I will see people who are practicing and kind of pushing through the pain, and it looks like they're genuinely starting to experience heat stress symptoms. They're sweating so much. So I think that oftentimes, luckily, because of the regulations around school use of these turf fields, it's never been to that point for me during practices. But the end of the day, these are often public use facilities, and people will go ahead and use them when they are beyond survivable temperatures.
Got it. Now I'll switch to the county officials here. Two questions I have, because I think the other speakers have laid out the case against the argument that these can't withstand the level of play, that they're often seen. But what about budgetary? I mean, we all watched the school budget discussions this session, and can they really afford these? Can they afford the installation? Can they afford the upkeep when they can't keep mold out of their buildings?
Funny you should mention that. I mean, what I did in the budget was, by reducing the amount of money for fields by putting it into turf, I freed up money to deal with some of their other problems, like schools that don't have air conditioning, little stuff like that. And you know, they they have to make choices with where their money goes. And it just seemed to me that picking a bad, unsafe choice for the convenience factor when you could have decent fields that would work and have money left over to meet some of the other needs you have in the schools, I would never have put my money in plastic fields. I would have put it in a place where the money does more good. This is a place where the money does more harm than it does good, and we could have done better.
And then what about county fields? How many of the Department of Recreation fields are turf versus natural grass? And what does the experience show there?
Well, I haven't been funding, at least in my time, artificial turf fields on county. I mean, I came in wanting to, stay with natural turf fields. I don't know if they've not done any, but my view in terms of putting the budget together is not funding artificial turf.
Got it. So do
Hey,
we know how many fields the
Kate,
county
for
has?
what?
We can get you
Kate,
an answer.
yeah, Kate, I'll get you an answer. From what I understand, the county rec department, I believe, only has one turf field. I'll reaffirm that with Director Albernoz. But then you also have to remember Park and Planning, which is not us, also has some turf field, artificial turf fields.
Got it.
So I'll try to summarize this for you as quickly as I can this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Jacoby, Bethesda Today.
Hello. My question is just about sort of the path forward from here. From my understanding, it sounds like the funding for the turf fields was approved as part of the district's CIP, and that now what is left to do is to approve the contract. So is there a way back at this point? Like,
Yeah,
how would that work?
you decide not to do the contract. It's real simple. You
But then what happens to the money is, I guess, what I'm getting at.
so the money is there. They can do contracts with that money for natural fields, and they can take some of the money because they're not going to use all that money. They're not going to use. They wouldn't use it all over the lifespan if we went to natural grass, and they would be able to take the surplus and redirect it to some of the things they need. I mean, I'm looking at the school system making cuts to services that support students in the classroom. And the idea that you got money for artificial turf fields, but you don't have money for the classroom is a little bit irritating.
And can I just add that it doesn't say specifically for plastic or artificial turf that funding is in the budget for. It
Right.
just says for athletic fields. So they can, but Board of Ed, it really lies in the Board of Ed's hands to take this data and what we brought to them and make that decision to sign, say, hey, we want an RFP for real grass instead, which they haven't done to date. We've been asking them for a year. The MCCPTA has been asking them for a year, and we have a resolution that says so. And to do a true cost comparison and to evaluate the costs and savings, and then to go with real grass instead.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else in the media? Any questions on this issue? All right. Well, that was a robust conversation. Thank you very much to our guests. Margot, good luck this season. And we appreciate it. We did put in the chat the video presentation from this group from August 11th, which will also have more information. You can feel free to open that up and make reference to that. And obviously, please, any other follow-up, you feel free to go through me to get a hold of any other follow-up questions or to get a hold of anyone that participated today. So thank you again. And Mark, back to you
Yeah.
for the rest of the briefing.
Thank
Our
you all.
guests, you can depart now if you need to go on with your day. So thank you
guys
again
were
for
a
your
great
attendance.
expert panel. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciated having you on here. So thank you for coming on and talking today.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It's good to
Thank you.
see high school students out speaking up. So back to other parts of the world where things aren't so great. And there's Donald Trump strikes again. The Trump administration is trying to make widespread changes to the Head Start program, not to make it better, not to make it more expansive, but to make it worse. And it shouldn't be a surprise that these decisions completely disregard the welfare of children most in need. And it's another attack by this administration on the poor and the working class, and frankly, people of color, which seems to be their favorite sport. This week, I joined County Council President Natalie Fonda Gonzalez and the Community Action Board in making a public statement against the proposal. Head Start has been changing lives in Montgomery County for more than 60 years. It gives students a real shot at showing up to kindergarten ready to learn. As a former fourth and fifth grade teacher, I can talk about the fact, the benefits that come out of kids who've had this opportunity. These proposed changes don't cut red tape. They cut into what makes the programs work. Qualified teachers, high quality early learning, and a voice for parents. And here are some of the changes that we kind of collectively object to. They reduce the instructional hours. This proposal would revert the classroom hours to the minimums in place in 1994 that undermines school readiness and makes it difficult for working families to participate. You know, extended care is really important for families where people are going to work and knowing that there's a place for their child. And, you know, we know just from our own struggles getting more childcare into the county that when parents can't find childcare or afford childcare for their kids, oftentimes one of the parents winds up not working, and that's not a good thing. There were easing staff requirements. New regulations reduced the ratio and remove the qualification standards. There's been a big effort over the years to reduce ratios so that students have better, more one-on-one contact with the instructors and to raise qualifications because this isn't just babysitting. This is, you know, early childhood education. And so the less qualified the people are who are providing the services, the less students are going to benefit from it. And it compromises classroom safety and it takes our teaching opportunities backwards. They've de-emphasized bilingual instruction. We live in a country that's pretty bilingual, and we live in a county that is very bilingual. Our community includes families who speak many languages. Bilingualism supports cognitive development. It is, again, I can tell you from experience, talking to kids who don't speak English and trying to work with them without supports in a classroom to address their bilingual needs deprives these kids of the education they should be getting. If you're sitting in a classroom, you don't understand what's being said, you technically have a teacher, you're technically in a classroom, and in reality, you're not learning. So it makes a difference. Cutting dual language support harms children and it disconnects families from their culture and education. Our parental powers are zapped. Parent committees help shape Head Start locally, and this proposal makes them optional and strips their decision-making authority. This is going to wind up in more costs for local taxpayers. The federal government is trying to shirk responsibility for funding early childhood education by capping the administrative costs it is willing to pay at 5%. It is unlikely that the administration of these programs is going to come under 5%. That undercuts funding for staff training, mental health support for children and staff, and the comprehensive services that some of our families need. Our staff is already overextended. Placing unnecessary caps in their ability to function seems like a justifiable way to do less good work in our community, not more. But that is truly the president's trademark. We're doing less and we're doing worse. And he's saving his money so he can give it to his billionaire friends. Each year, Head Start in Montgomery County serves approximately 1,000 children across MCPS and community-based programs. About 63% of the enrolled kids come from multilingual households, reflecting the diversity of our community. To ensure services reach those who benefit most from comprehensive early learning services and wraparound support, 100% of the infants, toddlers, and preschool children come from homes experiencing economic hardships. Head Start is a critical program for preparing children to be successful learners. Children without access to early childhood programs often enter elementary school 2 years behind. So imagine a 5-year-old entering 2 years behind. And when they leave kindergarten, and not for a lack of trying, but because so much brain development occurs before children start school, that is a challenge to bring them up to the level that they need to be at. And that gap tends to persist. If you look at research, it does not go away. It may get a little bit smaller, but the gaps don't go away. Brain development is different than learning. And I think, we've not been willing to grapple with the difference between those two things, but they are very different things. The development of the brain and how the brain structures evolve is different than learning how to spell or memorizing your multiplication tables. And when brain development is delayed or not experienced during early childhood, it tends to have lasting lifelong effects. So these years are actually critical for building foundational neural connections, critical to the development of reasoning. With the understanding why this matters, we should embrace programs like Head Start because they really are important. I got to say, it's hard for me not to go back on my experience as a teacher, but I remember in the 90s starting to read about brain development because we honestly didn't know very much about brain development. And so these programs and a lot of assumptions we had about learning, like kids are a blank slate and they'll get anything if you give it to them and everything will be fine. And you don't need early childhood and you don't need all day K. All those things were based on a lack of understanding about how the brain develops. And I started reading papers about what they were learning about brain development. And I started questioning back then, why don't our programs in school match what we know about brain development? And, one of my big knocks on the system is we were providing all the remediation for kids in like middle school and high school and no remediation for kids, below third grade. And yet they would tell us that by third grade, you know which kids are going to be successful and which aren't. So we've spent a long time pretending like we don't know what we know. It's not good to pretend you don't know what you know, and the consequences for our kids are real. So Montgomery County stands with Head Start because we stand with children and with families who are at the heart of our community and with the early child care educators who make this work possible. This critical work enables parents to pursue employment, education, and stability while their children learn and grow in safe, supportive environments. Any policy changes must strengthen, not weaken, the foundation that allows our programs to deliver high quality care that our community depends on. So we are going to continue to lobby for full funding of Head Start programs. And one of my great fears is one of the things that happens is they don't get fully funded. Either the programs decline in services or it falls on the state or the county to provide the delta in financing. We have enough problems with things being pushed down on the county. We don't need one more thing pushed down on us. Next topic is going to be safer streets for a new school year. As we start the new school year next week, it's important for all motorists to be alert and aware of school buses, crossings, and bus stops. And these handy little charts here, any of you in the visual media, these charts are really good because they make clear to people where you have to stop for a school bus and where you don't have to stop. So as you notice, in 3 out of 4 situations, you have to stop for a school bus in both directions. The only way you don't have to stop for a school bus in both directions if it's a divided road with a divider in the middle, hence the green going down the middle here. But if it's just 2 yellow stripes, you have to stop on both sides of that bus. So just wanted to make clear what you're looking at in that picture there. This means that all lanes, like I said, except on a divided highway, every MCPS school bus is equipped with a video camera system that will film and ticket when motorists don't comply. These cameras, along with our other investments, are working. Preliminary 2026 data for the first 7 months shows that serious and fatal crashes are down 5% compared to pre-COVID years. However, we are up 13% in serious and fatal crashes from the same time last year, which is very concerning. I don't know about you, but there are a whole lot of people on our roads right now who are driving at absolutely ridiculous speeds. And particularly when you're doing this, in a neighborhood or on, our normal thoroughfares with lots of lights and lots of unlit crossings. Speed is a killer, and speed makes it harder to react to things that come in your way. and we have to be serious about reducing speeds. We've been busy over the summer making our roads safer. We've completed 8 spot projects and 3 sidewalk renovations for designated walking areas in schools like Ridgeview Middle, Shriver Elementary, and Watkinsville. There's been a focus on building and improving sidewalks to provide better buffers from fast-moving traffic. That comes in response to community priorities raised by some bad crashes and tragic incidents. Major construction is also underway in what we've identified high injury stretches, including Montgomery Village Avenue near Mid-County Highway and New Hampshire Avenue between University Boulevard and Powder Mill Road to repair curbs, update accessibility ramps, and improve lighting and signals. Additionally, we've increased funding for pedestrian safety by 188%, going from 1.78 million the year before I became county executive to more than 5 million in FY27. And if we had more money, we would be at a higher number than that. And it allows us to install more traffic signals, beacons, and to create protected crossing opportunities. We're also addressing speeding managed by our police department. We now have 96 mobile and 6 trailer camera units capable of ticketing people going well over the speed limit across the county. There are some fixed location cameras in place as well. The bottom line for everyone is drive more slowly, watch out for pedestrians, and don't text or be distracted while driving. This county is sadly not immune to children being harmed or killed going to school. So let's ensure we have a safe school year and it's safe for every child. So before I open up to questions, I'll turn this over to my HHS team for any of their comments.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Within public health, we just wanted to raise one thing that's come to our attention. Our partners at WSSC Water have shared that they've placed a health advisory on the Triadelphia water reservoir. And that advisory is, while still allowing folks to boat or fish on the reservoir, they're advising folks not to swim or allow their pets in there. This is because of cyanobacteria algae bloom. These algae blooms can occur when the weather gets very, very warm and when the conditions are right with additional nutrients in the water. They expect the advisory will likely be in place for several weeks, perhaps a month, but they will update their advisory once they detect that the algae blooms have lowered to a safer level. Again, it can cause skin irritation or rashes if you come in contact with the water where this bacteria is, and it can cause GI distress if you drink it. It can potentially seriously cause serious illnesses or death to pets. And so that's why we are asking people to try to avoid letting their pets go in the reservoir water. They did stress that all the drinking water that they're providing continues to be tested and remain completely safe. So I want to underscore that as well. That's all. We continue to monitor the respiratory diseases. We've seen just the smallest uptick in COVID. It has not yet increased at the levels that we've seen in previous years, but sometimes these summer waves have come a little bit later in the year. And then we just want to remind all of our parents out there to check, monitor communications from the school about vaccines that your school-age children may need. And this includes children going into early education programs before formal schooling. And so please check with them, make sure that you have the appropriate vaccinations. Your pediatricians can keep you up to date on that as well. And if you need some support, you can contact the county immunizations, and we do offer clinics to help out with these back to school shots. Just want to remind everyone that there have been no changes in Maryland, no changes in Montgomery County to the vaccine schedule. There have been no changes to the coverage of the cost of vaccines. In Maryland, across Maryland, all regulated healthcare plans are required to cover all costs without any copays for those recommended vaccines. So we know that there's been a little confusion with some of the political discourse about vaccines at the national level, but nothing has changed in Maryland.
All right, thanks, Sean. I think since we're running late here, we'll now just go to questions. Any other questions from the reporters about any of these issues? Kate Ryan, WTOP. Thanks, Kate.
Hey, thank you so much. If I can get on the measles situation, you saw the notification from the CDC that the number of exemptions have increased nationally. I went digging around, and I'm not a statistician, but I went and looked at the Department of Health. And for Montgomery County, we've seen only a teeny uptick in those exemptions. And the last data that we have is for the 2025-2026 school year, and the MMR vaccination rate was at 96.5. Do we have any idea, and when do we get the data for vaccinations for this school year? Because that the health department has, right? Not the schools.
Yeah, so that it's done in conjunction with the school system, and this is ultimately collected by Maryland Department of Health in our state, and they share with us. We contribute some of the reports, and we track our students school by school to report this up to the state level. We won't have anything definitive probably for a little while now. We're very much in the middle of tracking these kids and helping them get these shots. What we traditionally see is until the first week or two of school, once the kids come back to school, that's when we tend to get a large number of verification forms that the kids have gotten the shots. And so our numbers typically jump up a little bit right when we get to around that point. From our internal conversations, it appears that the compliance rates are very similar to previous years. Last year, we were a little bit ahead of schedule. This year, it looks like we're a little bit ahead of schedule as far as the number of kids that are currently out of compliance. But again, most of that gets resolved within the first week or two of school as we get that documentation coming back. And then we work the schools, we work with the parents to try to help any kids who haven't gotten the shots, make sure they get their shots. So we should have more information, but I don't know specifically when we'll get the official reports. That could take a while.
I was going to say, typically, is that like October?
It that would likely be the earliest, I think. I'll research this and we'll get some information back to you when we expect to see it. But again, it does take a little while to compile it, and then we'll work throughout the year. A large county as such as Montgomery, we constantly have an influx of students throughout the year who come in, and then it changes the numbers. But we track that throughout the year.
Gotcha. And lastly, I promise, you mentioned the political discussion, and the Virginia and Maryland were very quick to come out with statements saying nothing has changed, parents. It's the same protocol, the same number of shots we want you to have, et cetera. But are you getting more questions from parents who do seem confused by what they've been hearing?
Yeah, our staff are sharing with us that they get questions from parents about whether the MMR vaccine is still covered, whether they're supposed to get individual shots. And we want to clarify, there are no individual shots for measles, mumps, and rubella. It is a trivalent shot. That hasn't changed. It is still fully covered. We want the messages to be clear, and it's unfortunate that there is some of this confusion that's been introduced. We'll be putting out some additional outreach and messaging over the next few days to try to help cut through some of that and make it very clear to the population.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Alexandria Barnes.
Good afternoon. Alexandria coming from Montgomery Community Media. I have two questions, one regarding the school safety and the construction, and then another one regarding the Head Start proposed rule. I'll start there. If federal Head Start funding, if it shrinks, would Montgomery County consider spending its own money to keep those current staffing levels and those hours of instructions in place? Or is that just something you all haven't looked at since it's clearly out the blue and very new? And then the school safety when will the families and kids be able to see like the new curbs and the signals and the sidewalks kind of along that Montgomery Village Avenue section, and or will they have to like walk through active construction this year?
I will have to get back to you on the Montgomery Village. I'm not sure where they are in the
Okay.
process, unless somebody on the call here knows the answer to that. But if nobody here does, then we'll definitely get back to you. As far as Head Start goes, I think we'd have to think about it. I mean, the repercussions, I mean, how many kids might lose it, what it might mean for, people who are going to wind up unemployed or not working in order to take care of
Mhm.
kids. We got to think about that. I would, of course, hope that the state could help, but I also know the state's in, hard financial times as well. So I don't know what we could expect in there, but I think all of us are concerned about the implications of these cuts.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you for that. That's all.
Okay.
Right. Any other questions? Last chance.
Scott, yeah, Scott, it's
Go ahead,
John
John.
Gonzalez with ABC.
Okay,
Hey,
yeah,
hey,
fine.
hey, guys. Thank you for the time, Scott. Thank you for the time, County Executive. Just a quick question going back to your traffic safety
Yeah.
topic. Can you touch, County Executive, on these new speed on green cameras that are popping up? I understand there's two intersections that are testing the cameras. Can you just give me kind of a sense of how the program works, how much it costs, and what the purpose is?
I'm going to have to get you more information on cost.
Hey, Mark, we have Wade Holland on the call, and I think
Oh,
Wade and Earl are both on the call. So
sure.
Wade or Earl, do you guys want to, can you address that question?
I can let Wade start and I can fill in any gaps unless Wade's not comfortable with this.
Yeah, I can respond to that. Thanks, Dr. Stoddard. And Wade Holland, the Vision Zero coordinator for the Montgomery County government. So speed on green is something that we've been working on. Basically, we have our existing red light cameras. They're up along the traffic signals, and this would allow us to, while the signal is in the green phase, so cars are going through, while the cameras are active, they could also issue speeding tickets during that green phase. So the rules are still the same. We still have to do the permitting. We still have to promote them. We have to add the speed zone signs along the speed where the speed limits are posted. So it's the same rules as all of our other speed cameras. We'll just be basically getting more bang for a buck with our red light cameras. So they're detecting red light violations during the red phase, but then detecting speeding violations during those green phases. Same fines, same rules all apply.
Thank you, Wade. Are your studies showing that people are trying to like zip through that green light before it turns? Is that kind of the motivation here?
Not necessarily just during turns, but just let's say you're driving straight through. It's a busy roadway like a Colesville Road or Georgia, Shady Grove Road. People see that green light and they want to speed. Not necessarily trying to beat the light, but they're just speeding because they're traveling on that corridor. So this gives us an opportunity to provide that safety tool on those corridors, but also because some of these places, especially like in our urban or more built up areas, sometimes there's not a place on the side of the road to easily place a camera. So this also provides areas where we can place a camera that may not have been eligible before because we didn't have the area along the sidewalk or along the side of the road to place a camera.
And my last question, what are the two intersections where they're being tested, and what's the timeline? Are we going to be adding more cameras, or how does that work?
I would have to double check. I don't know, Earl, if you know the two locations off the top of your head, but the timeline is kind of before the end of this calendar year to get those up and running. Of course, there is a permitting process, and we have to get them promoted through the newspaper as well. So at least hopefully for the testing and updates through the end of this calendar year, so through December. Now, Earl, if you want to add on to that.
Yeah, John, I don't know the exact locations. We can easily get those for you, but I think I want to give some important context here. So, as you may recall from previous stories and certainly a press release we put out last year, Montgomery County switched from one vendor for our traffic speed enforcement, our automated traffic enforcement, to another vendor last year. And so we got a bunch of new mobile units that you've all seen on the side of the streets, but the replacement of the pole-based readers takes more time because there is a permitting, it's a pseudo construction project, laying a concrete base, etc., or having to remount the cameras on the red lights that have the cameras above, for example. And so right now we've got a couple that we've done those on, and those are the ones that we are currently testing speed on green on. But ultimately, assuming we get the right, the right review and approval of those, we will ultimately look to expand this program to the other red light cameras across the county. And actually, I just got a note. Colesville Road and Georgia Avenue and Colesville Road and University Boulevard are looks like enforcement is those are the first two. So thank you, ACO Ken Hartman, for chiming from a distance.
Hey,
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
can you guys remind everybody how much over the speed limit you go before you trigger?
11, yeah.
It's 11. So you can do 11, but if you hit 12, you get in the ticket.
Correct.
So,
and it's graduated from there. So it
yes.
Basically based on how much faster beyond the 11 that you're going, it will dictate the size of the fine. And that's a state law change that took effect last year.
And Wade, do you know the question about Montgomery Village Avenue, what the status of the improvements there are?
Yeah, so this phase of the project is largely being wrapped up where they're repaving the roads. So as part of that repaving, they're doing a lot of the curb work, upgrading the ramps, doing the sidewalks. There's a traffic signal that's been installed, other traffic upgrades. There are some other projects in terms of like adding more beacons to cross to bus stops, but that won't impact students going to or from school. So construction should not have major impact on any school activities this fall.
Okay, thank you.
Can I get a question in here?
Hey, Ryan, of course you can. Anything for
Thank
Kay
you very
Ryan.
much. Well, we're traffic and weather on the 8th, and we want our people to understand these speed green. Are they always going to be paired with where you have red light cameras? And police have been very, clear on, we want people to know that these things are there so that they will slow down. It's not just about catching you. It's about helping you understand, don't do it. Is it going to be the same kind of rule for the speed on green lights that are outfitted?
We're
So-
required under state law. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Wade. You're the expert. I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, as Dr. Steiner was alluding to, the state law does require us to place, if it's a speed camera, whether it's on the side of the road or up in the traffic signal, we are required to post that there is a speed camera along that corridor. Now, granted, it may not be right in front of that camera. The speed limit signs tend to be a little further upfield from the intersection, but they will be warned. Again, the best way to avoid getting a ticket is just to drive the speed limit or at least below it, or at least under that 11-mile-an-hour threshold. So then you don't have to worry about the signage. But yes, there is legal signage for all of our speed cameras. And there are places we have certain placement requirements under state law for speed cameras. So there may be places where we have red light cameras, but it's not legally eligible for a speed camera, or maybe we don't have a speeding problem there that needs a speed camera. So it doesn't automatically mean that all red light cameras will be turned into speed on green cameras. We still have to do all the validation studies to make sure the camera is actually there for the right reasons, which is to deter speeding.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
there are 76 red light cameras. 2 are being tested. It will not be 76 speed on green cameras across the county, just so we're clear. It'll be some, we're gonna figure out where it makes sense and where we're legally permissible to do it, and where the data tells us that it makes sense to do it. This isn't just this isn't activated everywhere necessarily because it's not necessary in all situations.
Sure, I get it. And lastly, I will say speed on green sounded a little bit like a suggestion to me. I don't know, maybe you want to rethink that. It just came across. It's like, what is speed on green? Thank you very much.
If you recall the council conversation on this, I think one at the time, Assistant Chief McBain recalled it mellow on yellow, because a lot of what we were seeing is people were accelerating through the yellow, and you may miss the trigger for the red light camera, but you may be greatly exceeding the speed limit when you're going through the intersection. I think that's a common occurrence that anyone who's driven, not just in Montgomery County, but anywhere, has seen. And I think that's as Wade alluded to, it's going to do enforcement at all times. But at the end of the day, the situation that we have seen the most consistently is people speeding through the yellow. And so what we're really encouraging people to do is if you need to exceed the speed limit by more than 11 mile an hour to beat the yellow light, you shouldn't be trying to beat the yellow light, because it's incredibly unsafe to do so.
Got it. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
And I will follow up on that. One thing that we're going to look at administratively is potentially if you are speeding and have violated the red light. I think we're decided to just, they legally can give you both citations, but I think because the red light camera is the more dangerous maneuver, violating that red light, that will be the ticket the driver gets.
All right. Thank you, Wade. Thank you, Earl. I don't see any other hands in the air. So thank you, everybody, for joining today. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Thank you, Mr. Elrich, and all of our guests for joining us today. Have a
Thank you.
great week, everybody.